Hey everybody, I want to talk a little bit about something that I see happen a whole lot in families, especially with parents. So if you're a parent particularly, I really hope you'll take time to watch this video. And if you're not a parent, I hope you'll listen anyway and tell parents. Uh, One thing that we do to develop character in children of any age, of course, is giving them consequences. And that's the best thing we can do is give them consequences. What we don't want to do is make certain our children don't have consequences. Now, of course, consequences should be determined by the level of danger they're in. I can teach my kid a lesson about not playing in traffic by allowing him or her playing in traffic. Of course, the consequence in that case wouldn't be good when they're dead, because that's not a consequence, that's death. That would ruin my day, of of course, for a long time. That's not appropriate. Of course, what we can do is get natural consequences. Consequences are those things that help a person, adult or child, learn that we matter in the world, we exist, and our actions matter. Our actions matter. That's why it's so important to have consequences. I see it a lot. Let me. I want to talk too much about consequences. I actually want to focus the attention to say, here's something that is not a consequence. Something that is not a consequence that I hear a lot from parents is screaming or yelling at their kids. This is very important to understand. If our child makes us very frustrated, very upset, I think it's perfectly okay to raise our voice. Raising our voice, I raise my voice when I'm happy. We raise our voice when we're gleeful, when we're upset, we're frustrated, that's okay. Raising a voice, being intense about something is very different from yelling at them. Get over here now! That kind of yelling and screaming intensity. Yelling and screaming and mad and fussing is not a consequence. All that does is demonstrate you're frustrated or you're sad, you have resentment, hatred in your heart, whatever. Those feelings are normal when you're a parent. You feel a whole gambit of emotions when you're a parent. So what you're doing is you're expressing your emotion by raising your voice and getting real intense. But be real clear about this. What you're not doing in that moment is having consequences. So if your child gets up from eating the meal and you've told your child, as we all do 13 times, don't get up, finish your meal, finish your meal. And or sometimes even on the first time he or she breaks the rule of getting up or whatever, go, get down now! We just start yelling at them. Or we grab their arm or get real close. These things, now what they're going to do, they're going to sit down. Usually they might sit down for a second. And so it might work. And so what happens is we think that the child now has acquiesced and is now doing what we want because of what I just did. So my behavior made that person do what I want, and therefore it works. No, what happened was almost always, children would do one of two things. And I've seen both, and I see them all the time. I know a lot of people who this is what happens for them. One, either the child will grow up dismissing that part of the parent's mind. They'll say internally, their internal dialogue is something like this: just make it through. They're really, really angry right now, but in a second they're going to stop yelling at me and it'll go over and I'll do what I want to do. So just make it past the rage part, and I'll do it. And I kind of acquiesce and I'll do what I want later on. So it's passive aggressive. Well, of course we know, is that how we develop character? Well, of course not. That's of course not. So that means they're not listening. There's a disconnect in the relationship. They're not suffering consequences. It's only them acquiescing for a second to get you to be quiet because they're tired of having you scream at them. The second thing is they will actually do what you want, but not because of the consequence, because there is no consequence you give them as you've been yelling at them. They'll stop doing it because they don't want to have a broken relationship with you. And what they're afraid of, the consequence they're afraid of having, which most parents do give to them, is a break in the relationship. There's a break in the relationship. And so parents just say, I'm not talking to you. They don't talk to them for a day or an hour or more. Or they say hateful things about the kid or your child and so forth. So they might acquiesce for a second, but they're not learning because of a consequence the importance of not rushing through something, and quality time with the family and bonding, and the value of why we have family time around the meal, or whatever it is the event is. They don't learn that rule. They don't learn that at all. What they learn is, all they're thinking is, I've got to have my mom or dad stop being mad at me because that makes me scared on the inside. They're angry with me, and I'll do whatever it takes to get their affection back. So they're more concerned about the relationship being restored than they are learning any kind of rule or principle or moral value at all. So the parent feels pretty high and mighty. Yep, that's right. I'm the boss, and he or she's learning. You don't get up from that table. And what they're really learning is either mom and dad's crazy, or they yell a lot, or I give it time and they'll stop yelling, or I don't know what it is, but it makes them really angry and I don't see mom and dad mad and that's it. If you find yourself in this boat, you find yourself on the very first offense or the 50th offense, it doesn't matter, yelling and whatever, and you're getting so worked up, you need to take some moments. You need to breathe deeply. If your chest is getting tight, your shoulders, you need to take big, long breaths. You need to walk away from the circumstance. You need to. So if people ask me often, David, it's okay if I say, especially in marital counseling, when I do that a lot, is it okay if I take a time out and say, I don't want to talk about this right now? My response is yes. It's always okay to say, take a time out, for crying out loud. Yes, it is. It's just very important to understand you can't end it there. You have to come back and discuss the issue, not about making fun of his mama and so forth. You've got to come back and talk about the issue so the issue gets resolved at some point. But if you find yourself being uncontrollable on the inside and uncontrollable on the outside, you need to take a breather. Go take a walk, do some push-ups, take some deep breath, go drink some water, say a prayer, kumbaya, whatever you've got to do if you find yourself getting so worked up. That's more about you than it is your child. Please let that sink in, because too many parents are scarring their children because they're screaming at them. It's more about you. You need to take a deep breath and say, is it worth that typical response I usually give? Is it worth it now because she didn't eat her vegetables, or because he did something really bad, and we've been over this a lot of times before? Is my response worth it? Secondly, utilitarian response is, does it work? Does my yelling really create for them any kind of sense of character development? The answer is no. What would do that? Consequence. So I'll say one last thing about consequence. A consequence should be something that works in their currency. If I told my son, for punishment, you don't have to eat vegetables, he's going to say, awesome. If I told my son, you're grounded means you cannot look at any electronic device or read a book for a day or whatever, now I'm in his grill. Then I'm stepping on his toes, and that's a big deal. So whatever your kid's currency is, which by the way changes, it changes. When I was a kid, I was best friends with a kid in the neighborhood, and his currency was ice cream. And so when he got grounded from ice cream. And yes, we all laughed at him, which is not very nice of us, but we did a lot. All of our friends did. But he got grounded from ice cream, and he was very, very, very upset because he could eat a big old gallon jug and go. So whatever it is your kid's currency is, work on that appropriately. For example, and there's so much here. I'm not going all this. There's so many books you need to read about. If you have real good questions about how much is too much and so forth, there are good books on that. I would start with boundaries with kids and boundaries with teens. It'd be good stuff. But for example, if you have a little child, if they're 1 or 2 years old, it's usually about 1 minute of timeout per age and so forth. But you want to be appropriate. So go read the books by Cloud and Townsend, Boundaries with Kids or Boundaries with Teens. Matter of fact, read every book by Cloud and Townsend. That's going to help you. God bless you. I hope that parents, we can calm down on the inside, work through those emotions, work through them somewhere else. But when we talk to our children, we need to think like a robot almost. If you do this, this will be the consequence. And then when they have to suffer that consequence, we keep saying over and over and over, you chose that. I'm sorry you chose that. And I don't like when I get consequences too, and I make bad choices. But that was a choice you made. And I warned you multiple times. Now go, you can't eat ice cream anymore. That's what I would say every time. God bless you. I'll see you next time in the video.